In 2018, I quit my awful MBA job and started reading about socialism on Reddit. I frequented subreddits like r/breadtube and r/anarchism to cure my then insatiable interest in anti-capitalism. I don't recall when I discovered r/anti-work, but I do remember spending hours there reading questions and facts about anti-work. After becoming an anarchist, I found new value in the subreddit in the form of a space to meet other anarchists and discuss anti-capitalism, anti-work, and other related topics. At least, this was the case until a few months ago when I noticed that this subreddit has a problem. Our anti-work is no longer anti-work. Many of you from our anti-work are going to stop watching the video, dislike it, and write a comment about why I'm wrong based on that one sentence, but I ask that you have an open mind. Give me a chance to explain what anti-work is and explain the problem with our anti-work. Anti-work is an ideology that opposes work and seeks to abolish it. Work is involuntary and harmful to ourselves. It is unnecessary labor that people are coerced to do instead of living their lives, and therefore we should abolish it. A common reaction to these statements is that work is necessary for society to function, because most people would define work as any activity involving mental or physical effort done in order to achieve a purpose or result. This isn't what we mean by work. We define work as, to quote Bob Black, forced labor, that is, compulsory production. Work is production enforced by economic or political means, by the carrot or the stick. The carrot is just a stick by other means. But not all creation is work. Work is never done for its own sake. It's done on account of some product or output that the worker, or more often somebody else, gets out of it. To put it another way, work is labor or effort that we are forced to do in order to survive within our current economic system, which is capitalism. When you expend effort at work for wages so that you can afford to buy food, pay rent, and maybe have health care, you are doing work, and that work is coerced by the artificially created threat of starvation, houselessness, and sickness by the powers that be, the state, the police, your landlord, and so on. It's for this reason that work cannot be abolished without abolishing capitalism, and why anti-work is anti-capitalist. This is in contrast to any effort we do voluntarily for our own reasons. This video is an example of that. I don't make YouTube videos to make money to pay rent or buy food. I make them because I love talking about topics that interest me. This is a basic explanation of anti-work and work versus labor or effort that I think many who adhere to anti-work would agree with. But please be aware that there is a lot more to anti-work than what I have just explained. If you're interested in learning more, some resources can be found in the description below, as well as our anti-work sidebar. Our anti-work is overwhelmingly no longer anti-work because of the content that dominates the sub and the conclusion that people draw from said content. It is now a place for people, mainly liberals, to post text messages of them quitting their jobs, stories about dreadful pay and working conditions, and to declare random, unorganized strikes or labor action. Now, liberals creating threads about bad work experiences, recognizing exploitation from bosses, and removing themselves from that sort of work environment is a good thing in moderation. I do want liberals or progressives on the sub. It was in threads like those where they were introduced to explanations of anti-work by anarchists, a starting point that could result in them or someone else reading the thread eventually embracing anti-capitalism and anti-work. No, these posts wouldn't be a problem if they weren't the vast majority of what's posted, and if it wasn't for the conclusion that people are seemingly drawing from these threads. That anti-work is about refusing to work until we have a nice boss, fair wages, and good working conditions, because we would happily work under those conditions. That's not anti-work, that's pro-work. Anti-work isn't about nice bosses, it's about no bosses. Anti-work isn't about fair wages, it's about abolishing the wage system. Anti-work isn't about good working conditions, it's about abolishing work because we hate work. Well, I don't expect everyone on our anti-work to reach this conclusion overnight or even ever. When the narrative of the sub is dominated by people who say that anti-work isn't about anti-work, I think that's a problem. Instead of seeing anarchist ideas, new visitors will only see liberal misconceptions of an anarchist term and walk away no closer to anarchism or anti-capitalism than when they entered. The aforementioned misconception of anti-work stems from people who don't understand anti-work, don't understand what we mean by work, and have misconceptions about how anti-work relates to organized labor. And it's here I want to touch on that last point. Come on now, I know my regular viewers didn't think I wasn't going to talk about labor in this video. The video How Anti-Work Could Save the Working World by Sonder Studios, which has nearly 9,000 views at the time of recording, is a perfect example of equating anti-work with organized labor. Here, Sonder attempts to explain the history of anti-work and how it could be used today to save the working class, but instead talks about strikes in the labor movement during the 1930s. In his follow-up video titled How to Anti-Work, Sonder is talking less about how to do anti-work and more about organized labor action in relation to a general strike, specifically the Black Friday blackout general strike thing, which I'll touch on in a moment. And I just want to say I'm not trying to pick on Sonder here because you see this kind of stuff on our anti-work too. People applying the term anti-work to organized labor action, namely strikes. These are not the same thing. The John Deere strike and Kellogg strike have nothing to do with anti-work. The goal of anti-work is the abolition of work, while organized labor or unions are a possible method to achieve that goal in some circumstances. If you look at the mainstream labor movement and unions like the UAW or BCTGM, they believe in negotiating with bosses for better pay and benefits, a process known as collective bargaining. When bosses refuse to negotiate fairly and a contract runs out, the workers may go out on strike to put pressure on them to agree to their demands of a fair contract. All of this is generally good, but there's a huge problem. Those unions don't want to abolish capitalism. They believe that employers and workers have common interests. They are pro-work. They are so pro-work, in fact, that they agree to no strike clauses, restricting workers' right to strike for the duration of the collective bargaining agreement. Compare that to the radical labor movement with unions like mine, the industrial workers of the world. The IWW seeks to create rank-and-file run unions at every workplace in the short term and believes in the abolition of the wage system and collective ownership of the means of production in the long term. We believe that the working class and the employing class have nothing in common. We're generally anti-work, though the IWW rejects all political labels. Whether you're anti-work or not, you should organize your workplace. The IWW offers organizer training one-on-one to anyone who wants to learn how to form a solidarity or rank-and-file run union, and I encourage everyone watching this video to take it. About organized labor action and declaring strikes on Reddit. Stop doing that. Actions like the McDonald's strikes, which are really boycotts since they haven't been organized by McDonald's workers, are slacktivism and have little if any effect. Declaring fake general strikes online like the Black Friday blackout is even less effective because those actions never get organized. I know some will say that the blackout contributed to the downturn on Black Friday, but that seems highly unlikely. And no, I'm not just basing that on media reports, I'm basing that on the posts here asking what happened and the lack of response to them. Take organizer training and learn how to organize effective direct action that will actually get the better pay and working conditions you desire. Fake general strikes are a distraction from effective organizing. I think the labor misconceptions and fake actions have played a large role in contributing to the problem with our anti-work, so labor resources are linked below. As the sub has continued to grow, misconceptions of anti-work have spread throughout the subreddit and beyond it, essentially becoming the default position. Today, when fellow anarchists on our anti-work attempt to educate people about anti-work and correctly inform them that the subreddit is anarchic, they are more often than not met with vitriol. Productive discussions about anti-work are somewhat difficult to find and appear to have been largely drowned out or disappeared because of the hostility. I've made multiple attempts to strike up a conversation with people about anti-work, correct them on their pro-work misconception of it, and explain how it relates to socialism or anarchism. Most of these conversations were negative, with the other person claiming that anti-work isn't about abolishing work or anti-capitalism, and unsurprisingly repeating all the anti-socialist arguments liberals normally give. They were only interested in the general misconception of anti-work because that's what nearly everyone else on the subreddit is saying. Of course, not every single thread or interaction is like this on the subreddit. I've had positive conversations with people new to the sub about anarchism and organized labor, but the majority of anti-capitalist conversations don't seem to follow this trend because of the current demographics of the subreddit and how they define anti-work. Our anti-work's problem matters because we lost an online anarchist and more generally anti-capitalist space. Our anti-work is no longer really a subreddit for anarchists and potential anti-capitalists to congregate, discuss, and educate people about anti-work and other anarchist ideas. It's become a place severely lacking in anarchist content and often hostile to the very ideas it was created to spread. Meanwhile, the term anti-work has been co-opted and divorced from its original meaning, making it more difficult to introduce people to the idea. It's an incredibly disappointing but unsurprising development to see for the growing subreddit. So how do we fix our anti-work? As much as I like the idea of the creation of a sister sub while leaving this sub as anti-work, I think it's highly unlikely that will happen. But I don't think all is lost either. When the mods started limiting text message screenshots to Sunday, I noticed an improvement in the subreddit, so perhaps small solutions like that might be the trick. Since 85% of people found this subreddit in the past year according to the survey, there should be some sort of disclaimer in the form of a pinned post that anti-work is an anti-capitalist and anarchist concept. A pinned post is best because over 80% of people use our anti-work on mobile according to the survey and can't see the sidebar. It's at least a place to start. The only thing we can really do is keep posting and educating those who are moving left. There's still a lot of great folks doing that, even if they are mostly buried by other posts. Perhaps in time, the sub will balance out and become a space to educate people about anti-work again as the new people begin to embrace socialism. For those watching who aren't anti-capitalist and have made it this far, first off, thank you for watching to this point. Second, please understand that anti-work is an anarchist concept, and that our anti-work is an anti-capitalist subreddit. You should recognize that and at least be open to anti-capitalist ideas and discussions there. We understand that many of you are at different political stages and that the processes of rejecting capitalism is different for everyone. Most of us went down a similar path because of bad work experiences too. I know I did. But if you're not open to critiques of capitalism and only want to complain about work or get better wages and nicer bosses, then you're not anti-work, and there are better places for you to post that kind of content. Thanks for watching. This was a very different video from the type I normally make, but I thought it was worth making. The comment section is going to be beschissen. My intention was never to make a video that would respond to most people on the sub. However, seeing as how they will eventually find this video anyway, I decided to include some information for them. As stated earlier, there are resources in the description below for anyone interested in learning more about the topics I discussed here and then some. I suggest you check out my channel if you're interested in videos about organized labor, including general strikes. Speaking of, I'm still working on the general strike series and the last 2 videos will come out sometime next year. Until we meet again, see ya!